Hello and welcome back to Colonel O'Truth's Miniature Issues. In this video I'm continuing building Eastgate. You can see here I've got the Portcullis I previously made. I'm sanding the edges down to make sure everything is nice and smooth as it moves in its frame. I'm about to start painting this, which of course will add thickness. As you'll see, I'm going to only use an undercoat and then inks because they're much thinner than acrylic paints. So here I'm just making sure everything still moves smoothly. I'm starting with a thin coat of black paint over everything. I'm not trying to get perfect coverage, this is just to give some purchase for the inks later on. I've put down a sheet of paper because, as you can see, my work area is absolutely pristine and I'd like to keep it that way. While that's drying, I'm applying a base coat of dark grey to the gatehouse and tower. This will be exactly the same process as previously on my walls and the east tower. Just daubing it on nice and thick. Not being delicate at all. This is an old, pretty ratty brush. I like to hold on to my brushes until they basically fall apart. They're always useful for something. Back to the Portcullis. You can see the black paint has dried. It's fairly streaky, as you'd expect from just one coat straight onto plastic. But now this neat black ink is going to really darken things up, without adding extra thickness to the Portcullis itself as paint would. As you can see, this is not a slow process, you really just daub it on and get on with the next bit. Jumping forward, I've dry brushed the black with silver and washed with rust ink, and I'm checking it fits again. You can see it's a little bit stiff, but that's okay. I've highlighted the gatehouse and tower with a light grey over the dark grey, and I'm just applying my grey undercoat to the balsa wood doors. Once again, just like the walls and the east tower, it looks very pale at the moment. It's been highlighted right up to white. The black wash later will dim that all down again. And here we go. Just like before, with the other structures, this is a 1:16 ink to water mix, and my pipette holds exactly 16 drops of water. And this just goes on everywhere. The only thing I'm going to be careful of is not to get black onto the balsa wood doors, as I want to paint those differently. But all of this stonework gets a good wet coat of ink. I want heaps on there. I don't want it to dry while I'm working on it, because I'm going to add green and yellow just like the other structures while it's still wet. As you can see, I'm not being delicate at all. I can sense all the professional miniature painters out there gasping. Sorry guys. Here we go with the green and the yellow. The tower is still very wet here, and I haven't even washed the black off my brush, I'm just letting it all blend together. The green looks incredibly vivid on its own. This process is a great way of disguising little flaws. It's not just to look pretty like moss, it actually hides mistakes in the model. And washing the yellow straight over the green, again very, very liberally. Occasionally adding water to the brush as well to keep everything flowing nicely. For such a simple technique, I think the results here are excellent. Now for the floorboards at the tops of the tower and gatehouse. This is just thin balsa wood with the boards penciled into it, as I've shown previously. These have been painted up the same way as with previous structures. They haven't yet had their final brown wash. You can see I'm also working on a little gantry that will sit above the archway, looking down into East Street. This has just been put together out of balsa wood and matchsticks, and the support you can see built onto the back of the building is also matchsticks. Just neat brown ink over those. This is getting the same grey undercoat as the rest of the woodwork, which will then be highlighted up and then ink washed. Plenty of PVA to glue these floor structures into place. Not forgetting to mark out and cut the trapdoor for the top of the tower, which I did forget on the east tower. Again, this is very simple. Just cut out a square, and then later on use the same piece you've cut out, rotated 90 degrees and glued back in, so that the boards run the opposite way to the floorboards. Making sure the knife's nice and sharp. Just cut that by hand, don't worry about a ruler if you've got a steady hand. There you go, in it goes. I'm not worried about surplus PVA squidging out of the edges. It'll dry clear, it'll shrink. Really won't be that noticeable, and it's easy to disguise later. Pardon my big hairy hands. That's quite a neat fit, quite happy with that. And you can see here, I'm back to the gantry, and the floorboards in the two roof sections have had their brown wash. This is a fiddly bit, but it's the fiddly bits that make it all worthwhile. And now it's just waiting for a handrail. Taking the edges off some matchsticks here. Matchsticks are much stronger than balsa wood, so for this kind of detail they're a much better option. I'm just darkening them straight off with brown ink, not worrying about the grey undercoat this time, and I'll highlight them as usual. And that's all glued in place with PVA as well. Unfortunately, I lost the footage. Sorry about that. Now, I can't glue this gatehouse into place without finishing the street underneath it, because I won't be able to get in there afterwards. So I'm marking out some gutters I've glued on a piece of foam that will become a pavement. This is all foam board with the paper stripped off. I'm drawing in all of the paving by hand. I'm gradually going to do all of the streets in Undercrag like this, a section at a time, as they need to be done. One of my followers on Instagram asked me why I didn't use a roller for this technique. And honestly, the answer is I don't want anything to repeat and look like a pattern. Plus, I quite enjoy doing it this way. There's something quite zen about drawing hundreds of random shapes onto a piece of foam. Now, this is a combination of plenty of PVA glue and red DAS clay. I always mix my DAS clay with PVA. It makes it much smoother to spread and work with. And it dries faster, and it stops it cracking as it dries. Adds an element of plasticity, I suppose. So this is to show where the dirt road outside the city blends with the cobbles inside the city, and it lines up with one of the boards from my modular table. I'm painting the street with the same colours and techniques as the walls and the tower. I figure Undercrag is all built into a mountainside, so they're going to use the stone straight out of the mountain. It's all going to be pretty much a uniform colour. Light grey over dark grey, highlighting up to white, black wash, green ink, yellow ink. You can also see over to the right there, I've been working on the river coming out from underneath the city and the gate covering the outlet. I'll be getting onto this in the next episode. So I've got my base colours in. Haven't done the ink washes yet because obviously I need to blend the bottom of the tower with the inside of the street. But here we go. Once this is in and dried, there's no fixing anything. You can see I've added the hardware to the doors and the trapdoor. Just like with the other pieces, just tiny pieces of black card with a touch of silver and a touch of rust ink. And now I'm daubing PVA all over the place where the castle meets the landscape. I'm building this up again with DAS clay. I was starting to get quite enthusiastic by this point. It's really starting to look like the wall of a city. As I've mentioned before, I didn't have a very clear idea, and still don't, of how this city is going to develop. I'm leaving it organic, so that my imagination can just go crazy, I suppose. So, building up the landscape, hiding the worst of the gaps and mistakes. I'm using a flat wooden stick here, basically a lollipop stick. This is a very good tool for this kind of work. It doesn't flex like plastic, so you can really sculpt quite easily with it. Here we are, landscape shaped, ready for a bit of groundwork. You can see I'm trying out the next piece of wall just around the corner. And inside I've hidden the gaps with more sand, just like I've mentioned in previous episodes. Black ink, green ink, yellow ink, and that's looking pretty cool, if I say so myself. In the next episode I'll get onto the river section, the grasses, the bushes, the flowers, maybe even the little wizard over there. Hope you've enjoyed this. See you next time.